Hey friends, Dean here with some exciting news to share. You can now buy us a coffee. That's right. You can help support independent content creators like us by becoming a member of the 3324 Green Room at buymeacoffee.com/3324. Our episodes will always be free and that will not change, but your support at buymeacoffee.com/3324 will help us continue to bring you the best in music and movie podcasting, in our humble opinion. As a Green Room supporter, you'll not only have our undying gratitude, but you'll also be able to vote on which episodes we record and receive other perks for as low as $3 per month. That's the price of a cup of coffee. There's absolutely no obligation, and nothing about the show will change. It's not going behind a paywall. Go to buymeacoffee.com/3324 for all the details. The link will be in the show notes of every episode as well. We'll see you in the Green Room. In this episode, we're talking about a film with groundbreaking makeup, time travel, and a twist ending that shocked audiences everywhere. We're traveling to the planet of the apes. Stay with us.
Get ready for the 3324 podcast, where lifelong friends Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber share their love of all things music and movies. Dean has directed short films and is a music trivia buff. And Eric, trained in audio engineering, brings his extensive knowledge of music and film to the conversation as they discuss, debate, and celebrate their favorite albums, films, and much more.
Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. Eric, it's a movie episode. It's been a minute, like they say.
It has been. Yes.
But we had to get, if we're going to do a movie episode, we have to get this is now a pattern. It's officially a pattern.
Yeah.
Whenever we do these kind of sci-fi films.
Sci-fi, yeah, exactly.
Sci-fi films that are kind of cultish, it's the same group.
It is.
Right? Star Trek 2, these two gentlemen were on. Highlander, these two gentlemen were on. Was it also Edge of Tomorrow?
No.
I did that one.
You did that one?
We did Flash Gordon together.
Okay, and Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Flash Gordon. So all the obscure
all your best episodes are with us, I think.
Oh, wow.
Maybe not ratings wise, but I think quality.
Content. Yes.
Well, they stopped giving out Nielsen boxes in the 70s so people can't rate stuff, push the button and say that they like it. There's no more, that's, the Nielsen families don't exist anymore unless their last name is Nielsen. But I digress. Anyway, that gentleman who's starting trouble is Mr. Nick Leshi. And it's great to have Nick here. He's sporting if you're watching on YouTube, he's sporting the 3324 shirt. And he's imbibing whatever liquid he's imbibing. He's doing it with the 3324 podcast pint mug as well. So quality merch.
And making us look
handmade by me. I hand blow the glass. Roland, don't say anything. Roland, before we get him started, let me introduce Mr. Roland Uruci.
You open the door,
and I shut it. You see, that's what you got to do when you realize
a wink and a smile.
When you realize you open the door, sometimes you're quick enough to shut it. And that was that one. Roland Uruci, filmmaker extraordinaire. So glad to have you back. We haven't had you in a while, but we haven't done a movie episode in a while. So it all coagulates together.
Mm-hmm. So. Thank you. Thank you very much. I like it. I like it here. I'm the guy in the basement, so I guess sci-fi old guy.
Sci-fi old guy?
Yeah.
That sounds like a new YouTube channel. Old guy sci-fi old guy.
I like it. Yeah.
I would watch that.
Yeah, we might be onto something.
Actually,
yeah, like I said in the opening, we're doing Planet of the Apes, but we're doing the original from 1968. We'll get into the stats in a minute, but there's been there's been like 3 iterations of Planet of the Apes, and we'll get to the stats, and then I guess we'll start talking about this franchise that was seemingly kind of viewed as quite hokey after a certain point, and kind of got lost in the wave of Star Wars and Star Trek. Taking over franchises and Indiana Jones, and then this franchise kind of went dormant, but it's come like roaring back, like oddly enough. Who would have thought? But this one, the original Planet of the Apes, was released in February of 1968. Directed by Franklin J. Schaffner. Screenplay by Michael Wilson and Rod Serling from the novel by Pierre Boulle. It was a $5.8 million budget and a $33.3 million box office. That's not bad for 1968. You can see the money is there, and probably a lot of it was on makeup. It did win an honorary Oscar for John Chambers for his makeup work on this. This was kind of, at the time, I dare say groundbreaking. It was also nominated for Best Costume Design and Original Score. So those are the accolades. It didn't win, but was that who did the score? Goldsmith?
Jerry Goldsmith, yeah.
Jerry Goldsmith did the score, and it's very unique type of score as well. If you're joining us for the first time, make sure you like and follow us so you can get notified when new episodes come out. If you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, checking us out on Instagram, you can go ahead and comment what you think about the episode. And I think this is going to be Roland's first one, but we're going to be doing 3 truths and a lie. Instead of 3 lies and a truth, I've got 3 truths about Planet of the Apes and 1 lie, and these 3 gentlemen will have to determine which is the falsehood.
Yeah,
We'll be doing that later on, so stay tuned for that.
I'm excited now.
I'm
seated.
We're breaking them in. We're breaking them in.
Yeah, I like it.
One.
I like it.
So stay tuned for three truths and a lie a little
Can
later
I call
on.
this my first Wood episode? Because I'm a little excited.
And 5 minutes and 14 seconds. I think that's a record.
It probably is.
That's a record, but it would have been
about beats all my records.
It would have been about 45 seconds, and had I not stopped him. We need a counter. I think we're going to get a countdown. I need a sound effect for him.
Absolutely.
Not the. Maybe if his joke doesn't land, he gets the
the crickets.
Okay, I'll take that. I'll take that.
Anyway, let's get cracking on this. I think it's safe to say that none of us saw this in the theater
when it first came out. I wasn't born yet. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, I did not see it. I was alive.
Go there,
I
Nick.
did not see it. I did not see it in the theater. I remember it on Channel 7.
There we go. Thank you for bringing that up because you just teed it up for me. Now, for people of a certain age, if you lived in the New York tri-state area, okay, the ABC channel was Channel 7. And every week, it was literally, Eric, it was kind of like binging before binging was such a thing, because Channel 7 would have the 4:30 movie, right? Is that where you saw it?
That's where I saw it for the first time. Yeah.
So what Channel 7 would do is each week would be a theme. So as it got close to Easter, it would be Bible week. And they would show the robe. They'd show the 10 Commandments. They'd show King of Kings. Barabbas. Yeah, they'd show all, and then they would do like a Godzilla week, and they'd show like the Godzilla films.
Yep.
And then it would be like
Elvis
romance.
week.
Like each week.
They had Elvis week.
Yeah.
All those weeks. Yeah.
Abbott and Costello, they would have each week would be a theme.
Each movie weeks.
Monsters.
Yeah.
Frankie Avalon, everything.
Yeah. And it was great because you kind of got a week's worth of themed films, kind of almost like your own festival.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, my parents, I guess your parents and Eric's parents had that on religiously. Like 4:30, the 4:30 movie was on.
I ran home after school every day.
Yeah, it was that and the after school special. I forgot what I think that was on ABC too. So they eventually flipped it. I remember coming home from school and they would have them. And I think that's where I saw Planet of the Apes probably for the first time as well. And I had all them, talking about merch. We had all the merch back then, because they went deep in with like lunch boxes. And, I had the piggy bank, which I just found out is worth like $300 now if I still had it, So, it's just.
Plus whatever money you had in it.
Right. But, you talked about like the franchise going dormant. I mean, it wasn't for lack of trying. They did the 5 movies. Then they right away went into the TV series. And then they turned those into TV movies, 2 episodes each. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an animated series,
cartoon series. And then I think they were trying to reboot it, and it went into like this kind of development hell for like 10 or 15 years. They tried to get Arnold Schwarzenegger, a bunch of people before Tim Burton did his reboot. So I think they would have kept going if they could have found ways, because like the budget for each movie kind of decreased, but it was making money at the box office. So they had all this incentive to keep making it.
Each one of the Apes films, when it opened in the theaters, was number 1 in the box office. Just getting back, let me just tie a bow about the whole 4:30 movie thing. Is they would have Planet of the Apes week. So, and there was 5 Apes films, so it fit perfectly into showing the whole thing, and they would show them in order. So you got the whole franchise at the time in the 70s. You could just watch it on TV and kind of get the whole thing. So it was fantastic. Like I said, it was before rentals, before any of that. This TV station was kind of providing content grouped in a grouping setting where you can just kind of watch the whole thing and have different themes. So kudos to Channel 7. They were brilliant for doing that. And that's where I guess the 4 of us first got to see it, because again, this was, the movie came out in 68. It was probably on TV probably by the early 70s, Roland, I'd say.
Yeah.
Probably by the time they started doing that.
I vaguely remember them showing it like a night, like a Sunday movie, because also the channels would do it on Sundays. They would do like right after Carol Burnett, or they would get rid of Carol Burnett for that night, like in the summer, and they would show these movies. I saw like The Godfather, I saw on Channel 7, like this one, I think I saw on Channel 7. I think I saw in the early 70s.
Remember the first time I saw the first one? I can't, but I do remember. I mean, fun fact for me is my very first movie I ever saw in the theater was Escape from the Planet of the Apes. My parents took me to see it, so I had to have seen at least the first one at that point, because I wouldn't know what the hell was going on, So it was like
early. You never know.
I was like 7 when I was 73. That movie came out, and I remember my sister was born that year, and that was the very first film I ever saw in the theater.
Salminio, Dr. Milo.
Depressing as hell. Sad fucking movie.
Yeah, he gets bumped off right in the beginning too. He gets killed.
Yeah,
that is the one that actually stuck with me the most, was Escape.
Yeah.
For some reason I always gravitated.
Yeah, they kind of flip the script of what this movie's about.
Yeah,
which is the one before it. They kind of blew up the world, right? There was really nowhere else to go.
Pretty bleak series.
Right?
The whole series is kind of a down. There's nothing really happy that goes on.
It's a heavy commentary. It's a very heavy commentary.
Absolutely. And especially this one, especially when it came out in the 60s, it was still the social upheaval, and some of this stuff is literally kind of not masked very well. Some of the points they're trying to make. Before we get into that, Nick mentioned the merchandising and stuff. This was before Star Wars. It was Planet of the Apes for kids, at least for me. The Mego, they had the Mego dolls, which were incredible. They had the Planet of the Apes treehouse, which was like on the wish list probably of every kid of that age. Yeah. And those figures were just incredible, because the Mego, they had the full body suit type things. Like they did that for all their action figures. The head sculpts were fantastic. Everything was great about those figures. And then these shitty Star Wars figures come out that don't do anything. They don't articulate, and they make a ton of money.
Yeah.
Go figure. But Apes was the franchise rolling.
I think the best gift I ever gave to a kid for their birthday was a Planet of the Apes board game.
Nice.
And I was kind of embarrassed because we were immigrants, but I wanted to give it. I was like, oh, man, everybody gave nicer stuff. And this kid just like wept.
Loved it.
When he saw it, they opened it up and went, oh my God, perfect.
I was like, telling you, it was the thing. It was G.I. Joes were big. But as far as a movie franchise that kids could, that was directed towards kids, it was this before Star Wars. This was like the big merchandising.
I think it's safe to say that it probably wasn't pretty much the first.
Yeah.
Aside from, the old Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers serials and things like that.
In modern terms,
I would say like movie, like film,
real franchise,
tie-ins,
concept,
absolutely.
Feature
not
film,
a serial.
The first, absolutely,
yeah. And it's not really a film for kids. I mean, let's be honest. It's rated G.
I know.
I still can't. Today, I cannot get over the fact that this movie is brutal.
Yeah,
and it's
many
violent.
ways.
And it's in many
they
ways
wanted
racial. Man,
and the subtext.
Some behind the scenes. The filmmakers originally wanted all the native women to be bare chested.
Yeah,
and the studio's like, "Are you kidding me? Like no. Like, what are you thinking?" So besides the brutality of it, they were really going for something very artsy. a proof of concept film. The book was written in 1963, and I think Arthur Jacobson or whoever the producer was bought the rights to it. But before the book even came out, he's like, I think this could be something interesting. They did a proof of concept film. They shot it for $5,000 with Charlton Heston as Taylor, but the character wasn't named Taylor, and Edward G. Robinson as Dr. Zaius.
That's right.
With a very, and the makeup wasn't there yet, but it was just kind of like, this is kind of what it would look like. Here's what we're going for in 66.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then eventually they got the green light for it. Edward G. Robinson at that point was older, and he's like, I don't have it in me to do this. John Chambers then came up with this brilliant ape makeup that you can articulate in and still give performances in. Heston was always locked in from the beginning, although they say that
Burt Lancaster, no?
Well, he had stolen a lot. Yeah, he had stolen almost every role that Heston had. Lancaster was up for first, like Ben-Hur, Ten Commandments. He keeps stealing roles, but they also said they had Marlon Brando in their minds, in the back of their mind. I don't know about that. I don't know if that's a good that guy up they're going to pull him up in a net.
Yeah, he was a lot younger back then, so who knows?
Like a giant tuna.
Way too brooding. This needs a monologue. Charlton Heston monologue.
The Heston, he's got a certain swag, like a certain attitude about him. Which again, the lead character, not very likable, right? I mean, he's
not at all from the beginning. He was kind of like,
we kind of get three astronauts crash land on a planet. They know that they're thousands of years away from home. They don't know exactly where they are. There was supposed to be a woman, Stewart, along with them, so there would have been four. But
rest in peace.
Yeah, she didn't make it. He's like,
talk
maybe
about
it's
that,
better
though.
you didn't
very
make it. What's
Yeah.
that?
We should talk about her character. That was very interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
I never picked up on it until I watched it.
And the reason why she was there, right? You find
out. And they mentioned that.
She was to be the new Eve.
All of them.
Yeah.
With a hot little help.
Yeah. There's some, I mean, good Lord. I am shocked that nobody is really tearing this film apart today. Mm-hmm. You know how everybody's talking about older films today and like, this doesn't hold up and blah, blah, blah. I'm absolutely flabbergasted that in even with the new films that are coming out, that nobody's talking about this film. And I watched it twice this week and I'm just like, damn.
Yeah.
It gets you,
interesting.
But I think I don't think they were doing it. I mean, it felt legit. It felt important for them to. I'm actually glad they didn't pull any punches. And as an adult now, I'm watching this thing, and that's the whole thing. Great thing about sci-fi is how they were able to tackle these the social commentary at the time. So
Roland.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I think really a lot of it is commentary. It's not so much fall in love with all the characters.
Yeah,
it's explaining commentary and what society is doing. I mean, Heston has some great lines in it that are just contemporary of the. He tells the nephew of Dr. Zira, "Hey, never trust anybody over 30."
Yeah.
That was a big thing.
All these references from the 60s. It's dated now, some of those lines, but you could see how it would have resonated with audiences back then.
Yeah, it was very counterculture, right? Because at the time, that's what was going on.
Beards, only young people wear beards.
Why would you shave?
Yeah, beards. I don't go into fads.
And the lead character is an anti-hero, very cynical, very world weary, very not pleasant. He's crash landed with Landon and Dodge, and those seem to be these aren't like gung ho like action hero guys. They're kind of like astronauts that almost seem like they're doing a job, and and the first half hour of the movie, not a lot goes on and very little exposition. But when they do talk, it's about why are they here? Like, oh, you just, you left and you're not a seeker. And Heston's character's like, I'm a seeker, but I'm looking for something different. They're kind of he's very disillusioned with Earth.
Yeah. Mankind.
And I don't know if Nick, do you think he thinks he's better? Like, it almost seems like he has a superiority complex. Like he thinks he knows something that everybody else doesn't. Or
that
something
opening monologue that he's doing while everyone's asleep. Right, and he's recording it like smoking his cigar, right? Which is ridiculous because it's I'm sure you can't smoke cigars in like a spaceship, but it kind of just shows like, I don't care, right? Even if they knew that back then. But yeah, and he's just very cynical, especially at the beginning when they're talking, and you got Dodge going there trying to do his scientific research, and he's arguing with the other guy, right? Yeah, and you see the cynicism there. You just see like, he has no family left behind. He didn't care. But yeah, he is this anti-hero. But then as it progresses, as his two crewmates, end up getting the short end of the stick with whatever they're facing, he starts becoming the hero because you root for him to survive. But he's not a likable guy, like you said.
Yeah, because it's funny, Roland. I think he says it to Land, and he goes, you've been dead thousands of years. Anybody that ever knew you, I mean, he really lays it in.
No, he lays it in.
Then later on in the film, when he's in the cage, he goes, I never thought I'd say that I'm alone, like I'm lonely. He makes a reference to that. So there's a little bit of self-realization.
I think he it's an interesting storyline, and it's Rod Serling, so it's very Twilight Zone. There's a lot of, not heavy, but it's layered with stuff and a lot of metaphors. I mean, and you get, I guess we're going to talk about spoilers a little bit, but you get the other two characters. They pretty much, they die as the one guy is a scientist. He dies, and he becomes a taxidermy.
Yeah,
like he's stuffed, and he's next. He's put on exhibition. The other guy is muted. He became a mute because he wouldn't stop talking.
Lobotomized.
He got totally lobotomized. So and Heston, what are they? He's the guy who was kind of a skirt chaser, and they were going to make him a gelding. So I mean, it was really interesting how they played around the characters, and they're showing our three vices probably. Overthinking.
Good point.
Over much, too much ego, and only about procreating. Only about having kids, procreating. So I think that was your interesting thread through it that I saw it, and him evolving and becoming a one gal guy. Even though he said there were a lot of women, I mean a lot. I mean that was great. He says that, but he found love that he thought he never would find, and it is interesting that journey from that struggle to get there, and it pulls you in by the end. By the last act, I would say you're like, I got to finish it.
I think he definitely finds his humanity. It's very easy for him to make these assessments about how shitty the world is, and but he didn't actually live it. He doesn't actually, he's an astronaut. I mean, how did he become such a prestigious career? And if he's so against mankind, and now he's actually living all of the things that the slaves went through. I mean, you're talking about guys being dragged with nets and things like this, and to actually experience that, I think it's a hard lesson, and I think it humbles him to the point where he shows he's feeling that himself. So I don't think he's a little less by the end. He's probably a little less cynical, a little less
He has an affection for the apes by the end.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's very telling.
Yeah, because in the beginning, when the three astronauts they encounter some signs of life, they encounter these scarecrows, then they encounter these humans that are kind of can't speak, right? They're kind of wild, they're feral humans, and Heston's line is, if this is the best they got in not 6 months, we'll be running this planet. He still has that cocky attitude of like we're that superiority complex, and not a few seconds later does his living nightmare begin.
Yeah,
and it's one of the most effective parts of the film is you hear like this weird noise coming from the woods, and all the savage people, they kind of stop. And then they just start running.
They freeze like a herd. They freeze like a herd,
and you don't see what's happening. You just see like these sticks in the cornfield. Like the apes are kind of corralling them and kind of triangulating them. It's such a great and effective scene. Then all of a sudden, we get to see one on horseback,
and the astronauts run with them because even before they know what's coming, they know something's coming that's making everybody afraid. Just like that herd mentality, like you mentioned.
It's a herd mentality. That's another thing there. Like it's totally a herd, like antelope on a field where the lions are coming to hunt, or the hunters are coming, and they're game hunters. who are chasing them. I know they're like caught for services, but if you look the way the apes that capture them, they take a photo.
After the
proud
hunt
of their hunt. So big game hunters. They're going on a hunting reserve.
Yeah,
I mean,
just like we pose with a rhinoceros,
with a rhino,
right?
some weird guy not affiliated with a royal family, with a presidential family, doing rhino photos.
Yeah, but all the bodies laying there, the guy and the guy, the gorilla's like, smile. It is putting in front of us what we do, what we take as, a hunter, and look at me posing with the dead thing. But now we're taking it as the humans are now the prey.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it is kind of when they're carrying Heston, and he's on the stick and he's hanging. It's kind of like you would see that at a pig roast when before they put the pig on the fire, so they're giving us this imagery, this reverse imagery, to really start to be like, oh my God, that's horrible. It's like, well, yeah, it is horrible. Mm-hmm. And I guess you're realizing it because you're seeing it as human beings, right? Is the tables are turned, and it's not so funny anymore. It's not so, look at he caught a big lion.
Yeah. Yep.
Definitely. I mean, I'm just coming to that first scene, which is a very dramatic scene when you see all this stuff, and it's handheld camera, so it's disorienting, moving around. But to your point of awards for makeup, it still holds up.
Yeah.
I swear. I was like, I've seen worse makeup like that from last year. I mean, the makeup on the apes holds up. I was like, oh my God. I forgot. After a while, I was like, oh yeah, they're apes. Yeah, and that's it.
I remember seeing that scene for the first time. I was scared. I mean, it was shocking.
Yeah.
And the music and that Goldsmith, that weird, inflections of when you first see the gorilla, and it's like the close up of his face, and it's like, and you get that shock value. Heston's reacting to it. You're reacting to it as just like him, and
it's chaos. Like it's very like the three friends are losing track of each other because they're kind of splitting up. They're at that point, it's kind of every man for himself, and then there's that creepy shot rolling with the ditch. Like a ditch, and I don't know if that was pre-dug or like it seemed like they were shooting them and then like having them fall into the ditch.
Was it like a mass grave? Was it
something? Very unsettling.
You couldn't tell.
Yeah, it was almost like a deer hunt, almost like when you have to cull a deer population, but then you leave a certain amount of lot. Like it seemed like that was what was going on because they did capture some of them and they brought them as prisoners.
Yeah, and that's mentioned later of culling. Yeah. It is mentioned later.
Yeah.
To your point, it is mentioned later in the film that is part of their.
Just kind of deal with population. You don't want them to.
Yeah, because that's how they're looked at. They're looked at as a menace, right? They shouldn't be. They have at the end that they read the scrolls. Don't let them breed in numbers and shun them, and they'll make a again, laying in on the human race, like they'll make a wasteland. They'll kill their brother for their possessions. They really kind of really go into like all the faults of man. It does not paint. They do not paint mankind in a positive light. And even at the end, there's no resolution to that. There's no big heroic turnaround. Dr. Zaius does not change his mind about anything. Right? If anything, he's more, after encountering a quote unquote real human, his resolve is even further. Like this solidifies that these people they're warlike,
and they're a danger.
And he's right, and he's absolutely right the whole time. And he knew, and that's the thing. It's like it's so chilling that he knew the truth all along.
I have always known about man.
And every monologue that comes out of Maurice Evans' mouth, as Zaius is absolutely you are paying attention. He holds your attention in that, and those are some of my favorite scenes. Was when he's giving it to Taylor. Taylor's trying to be a wise ass. He's trying to give it back, and those exchanges.
Their office scene is one of my favorite scenes. The office scene is one of my favorite scenes.
What when they meet together, or the
when he goes, he lets the guards out and he has all the conversations
and they talk.
That's actually one of my favorite scenes.
There's
really
so many different philosophical or cultural things going on. There's the hierarchy within the ape culture. Is the orangutans are the ones that are the ruling class. The chimpanzees are kind of like scientists. And the gorillas are the brute force. They're like the army. They're like the military.
Soldiers. Yep.
So it's in there, and they even talk about that. And because Taylor. He says, well, so, seems some apes are more important than others. So he was calling out their own hypocrisy that they have this, this caste system of who's more important and who
owns the faith,
who's a defender of the faith, and the interesting conflict, Nick, that comes up a lot is the contrast between science and faith.
Absolutely.
Right, because Cornelius and Zira are scientists, right, and they're just looking at data. Like, here's what we see, here's what we found. Dr. Zaius and the orangutans and the council have this faith in these scrolls that were handed down, that is the basis of their society.
Yeah, it's the politics of it all. Like the orangutans are they're the religious keepers, right? The keepers of the faith, but the political control too. They are the leaders, and they manage all that. So it's funny that Cornelius is like, look, I found this. I need to go. He wasn't breaking the rules. He got the grant or the permission to go out there. And then when he comes back, he's like, here's what I found. They're like, all right, that's enough of that. So it's like, it's like they don't trust, any evidence that would contradict their faith. But it's also that political control then, because then it will, lead to other things. But, you were talking about the dialogue and all the themes. A lot of it is Rod Serling, but like I heard that a lot of his stuff from his draft of the script was taken out. So the ending is totally Rod Serling. And I think a lot of those speeches are leftovers, but I'll be curious, because I don't think Rod Serling would have left a lot of those plot holes, like from the beginning. Like I always went into it knowing that it was Earth because I knew the twist. You couldn't keep it. Like the posters showed the Statue of Liberty. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like But it's just like they spoke English and they had machine guns and cameras. So it's like you wonder, audiences, would they have just suspended disbelief, or did they kind of question it?
I was at the time. It was a parallel universe, universe, but this is where instead apes evolved.
And I found it interesting the beginning when they talk about there's no moon at night, and then they have that weird lightning, and they don't really investigate that at the beginning. Later, you think, okay, it's got to do with the radioactivity, and maybe it was a new moon, maybe the moon was blown up. Who knows what it might have been? But all that piqued my childhood curiosity. Like, what is this? So
they also glance about the date. I mean, if you remember when they crash, it went instead of because they were traveling, doing a deep space mission, traveling almost the speed of light. So they were like losing thousands of years. They were going past thousands of years, but only aging 6 months. And when they came back, it was supposed to be like 26 something, but they ended up like being like 39 something. And they were like, oh my God, we overshot it. So in my mind, something, even as a kid, another planet evolved sort of this way, but apes evolved. That ape took over, our ape died off. So I think that's sort of the thinking behind it.
And they never and even the screenplay sells it in the beginning. They're like, we're definitely not on Earth, where there's no moon, right? We're not in the right constellation. So things have changed,
shifted
universally, throughout time. So they kind of they're believing, they're never questioning. There's never like a thing of like, well, is it possible on Earth? Because all these things are so nightmarish that are happening, and they're happening so quickly that you don't even have time to question where you are. You literally are thrown into a society where you're no longer.
They landed in Jersey. I mean, they landed in Jersey. That's all it is.
Look like the Grand Canyon, some of those shots too.
But it's Statue of Liberty. They landed.
Someone realized the map. There's one part when Taylor Heston shows where he landed, and they say that you can actually match up the map to you could see like Long Island, the shore of Connecticut, where this would have been.
In hindsight,
it wasn't Hoboken though, was it?
It's Elizabeth.
But I think there were enough nuclear explosions and things that just reshaped the face of the Earth. I think that's kind of like the premise.
Global warming, planet, shifts, everything.
I always love the fact that the apes still live in a somewhat primitive society. In the original novel,
no flight. Yeah.
Right. In the original novel Pierre Boulle wrote, it was a modern utopia. Like they were flying around in helicopters. They wore suits. They wore regular clothes. And I think Rod Serling wanted to write the script as such.
Do you know why they didn't?
but I think it was the budget. No, it
Of
was
course,
just
it
way
was
too much money.
Yeah, they didn't have money to do that. They're like, let's make it more primitive because it'll be easier.
But it was more effective, though.
I think so.
Yeah,
and they address it in the story because it's evolution. Yeah. They show they say, we have bones of gorillas from 13 and 12,000 years ago or 14,000 years ago that weren't evolved. So they're showing we evolved. So I think they actually did address it in the story,
and they were still trying to figure it out too, right, Eric?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was would they acknowledge that there was a more advanced society, but that they chose to live like this. You know what I mean? Like that the lawgivers decided, no, we're gonna.
Well, they couldn't figure it out. I think what it was.
I think it works though. I think whatever they did or whatever they didn't do, it works itself out in the story.
I think it helps the story. Yeah, because Cornelius, when he's at the dig, he's like, I don't understand why, they have the different levels of the dig. And he goes, at the lower thing was the more advanced culture. He goes, why? We've never seen that, So they do make allusions to something happening that everything got reset, right? And basically we're kind of living like we're in the 1700s again or whatever. Like we have to kind of reconfigure everything, but we're learning that there was something earlier that was more advanced, So I think it's an interesting spin on it, on kind of finding out their origins, and that's when Heston's like, man was here before you, and he was better
than you,
better than you. Like, really,
that was the only moment of being proud of humanity.
That was probably one of the big, like Nick was pointing out, one of the big tells too. When he's like, I'm
reconstructing a past.
This guy wore false teeth and eyeglasses, and it's like, I'm not saying he was a guy like I knew at home, but it kind of is, like
turns out he was like on Fifth Avenue,
right?
That was a high rise. That was at some point.
I want to put a question out there to you guys. I mean, I know that I don't know, the acting involved, the direction, if the producers had anything. In any way of the production, like the later iterations, you see the apes are effectively more ape-like, right? Yeah. They're walking around on all fours. They're jumping. They're, was that something that you think that they had in mind in the beginning, or was it a conscious decision to make them more human?
Probably not.
And characteristic,
I think this is more the actors play. I think they didn't know how to play it and how do you stand out. Yeah. I think what is it? Cornelius.
Roddy McDowell,
Roddy McDowell, and I was reading up on it too because we were all those guys who were like, hey, let's look at notes before we get on here. But I think he tried to give them facial tics. He told the other actors, hey, use facial tics to make it a little bit more real. So they weren't focusing on the body shapes. And if you look at the camera work on this one, it's very much shaky cam. That's very popular now,
and a lot of zooms.
So you never, and then it's filmed, so you really don't know what's going on. Yeah. So you're going to make sure that if they're going to zoom, hey, we're doing a lot of zooms. Guess what? I'm going to make sure my face does it.
Yeah. But the kid that played the nephew, I noticed he really. He gave it his all because when he was walking, he had he was like walking like he was doing like the chimpanzee kind of walk, and
not over the top. They didn't have monkey screech noises. Yeah. I mean, you had the hiss.
Except for Julius.
It's funny, but
I love the hiss. The jealous hiss was great. That was actually one of my favorite little nuance things.
There was those little subtle things. That, they didn't try and like go method with it like they would later on. It was enough. And before we get into the cast, one of the interesting things that happened during the filming of the movie is when these guys would break for lunch, they would still need to stay in their makeup, and the orangutans sat together, the chimpanzee actors sat together, and the gorilla actors all sat together in their own little cliques. It was almost like a little mini microcosm of what the story was telling, that when they broke filming and went to lunch, they all sat in their little groups, in their own little tribes. So it was kind of interesting that effect, putting the makeup on, and makes you feel separate from other people, and you felt comfortable sitting with people that had the same makeup on.
A shared experience at the most basic level.
Yeah.
Right. That's what it was.
And kind of group mentality or group think, right? Kind of like we all kind of gravitate to people we feel comfortable with. And in this case, it was visual because they had to leave the makeup on.
And we call it like makeup, but it was like these prosthetics that took hours to put. That's
so
why they
good.
couldn't take it off. I remember seeing a Johnny Carson interview with I think Paul Williams, who was one of the Apes in the sequels, and he just came right from the set because he didn't have time to take it off. And I heard that Roddy McDowall would drive home wearing the makeup, and like you said, they have lunch and the makeup on, right? So
there's a lot of emotion that comes out of those faces, especially from Roddy McDowall when he smiles, like
Kim Hunter,
his whole face just. And you see it in the eyes too. In the eyes,
the most important thing.
Amazing.
Agreed.
Yeah. So let's run through the cast because we didn't do that, and I think we need to because there's essentially, for the most part, 2 actors that are human in the film, and the rest are all under prosthetics, and they really need to bring out the uniqueness of their simian species, right? What type of ape they are, but then also give their performances as their characters. So. You've got Charlton Heston as Taylor, Roddy McDowall as Cornelius, and Kim Hunter as Zira, Maurice Evans as Dr. Zayas, James Whitmore as Brooks was here as the president of the assembly. Silence, that animal. Let's see, and mainly Linda Harrison as Nova, who really. It's easy to dismiss her as a Raquel Welch knockoff of 1 Million BC, but she had a performance that she needed to do also. Yes, she's a very pretty face. Yes, she was dating the producer at the time.
Married to the producer right after.
But she had probably one of the harder jobs because she had to play somebody who was kind of very primitive, but then was kind of learning a little bit and kind of, and she was attached. She was paired up with Taylor, with Heston, but then she became willingly kind of staying with him for whatever reason. We don't, there's no backstory to her. Although there was a whole thing in this movie that was cut where she got pregnant. She got pregnant and Heston gets killed and she goes into the forbidden zone, into hiding. And they're like, that's too much. Cut it. We're not going there with it. And we got, what we got, which I think was better. This cast is like, Kim Hunter, Academy Award winner, right? For Streetcar Named Desire. I mean, so we got some high powered talent. And like you said, they need to act outside of those appliances. And I think Kim Hunter does a really good job with it. Roddy McDowall with his eye, he kind of does a Chewbacca thing with a lot of eye work. So he's kind of looking and kind of, because Cornelius is very cynical in the beginning. He's very like, Zira, do you want to get my head chopped off? He's like, this is crazy stuff you're saying, I
wouldn't say cynical, but skeptical.
But
very skeptical. Yeah.
I don't believe it. And he's kind of, Zira's all in. Let me ask you this. Was Zira in love with Taylor? She seems very enamored with him.
No, it's like you love your pet.
Shut up, Nick.
It's like you love your pet. You fall in love with an animal.
You're a hater, Nick.
That's what it is.
You're a hater.
He was blue eyes to her. It was always like she did.
Off his loincloth.
He asked for the kiss at the end, right? Wasn't that like
Nick?
Well, she had a look at Eric. She had a look in her eyes, like that. She was it was more than scientific curiosity and and I don't mean love, maybe that she wanted to marry him, but there was
there was no marrying there.
I think so. I think she saw something in Taylor that even before he started to, show or write the, when he grabbed her and write the note and all that.
Yeah,
there was obviously something to the guy that was not like the feral, his mannerisms, the way he articulated, the way he, I definitely think
different. Blonde, like you said, blonde hair, blue eyes.
There was that moment where when he writes that you wouldn't hurt me, would you? And he's, and that scene and just the look on her face is one of admiration and perhaps.
I think there was tons of sexual tension.
Roland,
there was tons of sexual tension.
Well, it was maybe.
Yeah. When Heston got his loincloth pulled off in the court, we were going to go there. Bright eyes. Well, she did not look at his bright eyes.
Cornelius was feeling a little squeamish there. And he was like, listen.
He was feeling a little inadequate. Man stands up straight. Know what I mean? You got an edge.
Wow. But if you notice, Taylor, his reaction is one of shame. And why would he feel that? when he's, but because I think it's because of Zira, So
yeah, she did say something special there. Like it's like what you hear now from like human beings when they say, "Oh, these animals don't have like any soul or anything." It's like that kind of thing. Everybody's like, "Oh, he just learned. He's mimicking apes.
Yeah.
He's mimicking all these intelligent apes. Human beings don't. They're not people. They're not like So, and she sees that. She sees that. No, there's something special about this particular one, and maybe she's seen it in some others too. Like, but never on the level of Taylor. So
right.
Yeah, and there's that great whole
everything
court scene.
excited her.
Yeah.
Telling you. And Taylor's he's into experimenting. He went, hey, listen, the female astronaut left, guys. We're gonna have a little bit of a sword fight here. They went to skinny dipping within 30 seconds.
Yeah,
that was a funny scene. That was a funny scene when they're looking down, and I'm like, dude, this is like,
why are you looking down?
Yeah.
Like, hey, what do you think?
And then two guys dropped down. I said, wait.
I kind of okay. Yeah,
when I saw that,
have some fun with this.
When I saw that in the Alamo, that scene got a laugh when the three of them were standing there, two of them kind of leave the frame,
and probably a couple of high fives. I mean, got everything.
All right, that didn't play too well, but one of the scenes that did play well is the whole courtroom scene.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Because that's really when you hear the philosophy of and to Nick's point, one of the members of the council is like, tell me what proof that there's a divine spark in apes. What makes apes different? He couldn't articulate that because he's like, I admit I'm not from your planet, and they're like, whatever answer he was going to give was not going to be good enough anyway. But there was that whole conversation, you're calling him the accused, but if he's a man, then why is he the accused? And, trying to, it was an interesting kind of interplay between the, defendants of him and the ones that were prosecuting. And then you get the great scene where they're, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. And that was improv on the set, and
I didn't know that was improv. That's great.
It played well for the audiences, so they left it in, and it literally speaks to exactly that they didn't want to hear anything different from what their dogmatic, life was telling them to do, what the scrolls were telling them to do. They didn't want to hear anything different from that, and even the notion of flying, right, is like, Zira's like, why would you fly? Like, what's the point of flying? It's like,
Which, I mean, I have to throw it out there, but which is a huge plot hole for the third film because,
of course, they
don't know nothing about flying, yet they knew how to fly a spaceship into space and go back.
They knew how to get it. Yeah, they knew how to get it out of the water first and then repair it and launch it.
Well, no, I think they used Francis's.
His ship,
Brent's ship, because their ship was all it sunk.
Second film,
so it must have been from the second film, but still, like, how do you figure that out?
They were scientists.
That's right. You got Cornelius.
Yes, serious chimpanzees. Orangutans couldn't have done it.
That's right.
Chimpanzees,
gorillas, because gorillas are just the brutish military,
Yeah,
they did the heavy lifting. They pulled it out of the sand or whatever, and then
and then the chimps.
They just But getting back to the courtroom scene, Dean, I think it's funny. It's also. I also love the fact that Cornelius and Zira, they don't understand why. They don't even realize that they're the ones being put under the microscope at that point, right? There's like it's Zaius that points that out. He's like, "We're not here for him. We're talking about you guys. Yeah. You guys are the ones speaking out against this." So and then that completely changes the whole tone of the whatever. But they're still very show some strength, and she's always and then Cornelius finds that strength. I love that. That he finally does start speaking out, and he's like more in line with what she's feeling and stuff. So
he kind of brought out the scientist in him, right? That because this person exists,
right?
I need to speak up for science because there are possibilities, and science and faith don't always intermingle. Roland, over to you.
Yeah, and I think they also mimicked the Red Scare. One of the writers was actually blacklisted.
Yeah.
On the film, so he brought that up. He wanted to bring that up and bring that in. And so was it Kim Hunter? I think she was blacklisted too, or a few people were blacklisted on the project. So they wanted to bring up that scare, that what happens in a trial like that, where you don't even know what you're being accused of.
Yeah,
You told us to come here, but we don't even know what this is about. What are we doing wrong? We're just trying to explore knowledge. So I think that was
insane. What have I
that's
done?
the stuff. Yeah, it is so good. For me, it felt very Star Trekky too, sort of in its tempo and the colors and the palette, which probably is influenced by that sci-fi of where we went and what was popular, still on reruns heavily. At that time, it was peaking at that time as well, and the Twilight Zone stuff. But the messaging is I'll tell you again, by the third act, the messaging is very strong. The first act made me kind of chuckle. Because it was very dated for me. It was very 60s.
Yeah, there's just nothing. It was.
Yeah, they're hippies. They're all like free love, and that's all kind of like the attitude and all that stuff. But once it really clips into the second act of like, hey, I want to show you all the violence that's happening now and how people are treated, and then you go into the thinking act. Okay, now we're going to decide. Now this is the dialogue act.
Yeah, we need to resolve
really. And it's so well paced in that way.
Yeah, and it just. There was a lot of shocks and surprising twists and turns, like Stuart dying, just being old and just like she's been dead for a year, the lobotomy and he's turned into this you talk about the taxidermy, right, and all that. All these shocks. Well, and Taylor gets shot in the neck. It's like that's it was great writing and plot points along the way. So the pacing, was like, a little slow at the beginning, but as a science fiction fan, there was a lot of exposition and things that were, like I said, I mentioned the moon. To me, that was like, whoa, no moon? What do you mean? It's like, it's just interesting.
Well, it's almost like two different films. The whole first half hour is very artsy. It's very like long shots of them walking. They're not really talking. It's kind of canyons. Like, it's like, where is this going? But then once that hunt starts, the movie has a totally different pacing to it, feel to it. It's a little more, that whole scene is so much more kinetic than anything we had gotten in the first half hour. It's like a total change, which was probably lulling people into almost maybe into a sense of boredom. Then they get shocked when this thing happens.
If it wasn't called Planet of the Apes, like. You would think the first part almost feels like Robinson Crusoe on Mars or something, where like they're just falling here, just trying to survive, But like you said, when you see the scarecrows, when you see that tension of these human-like figures watching them from a distance, something's going to build up. And like you said, boom, that chase sequence, and suddenly it becomes a whole different film.
Yeah, and they become effectively different characters. Really, how they interact, what their talking points during that first act, sort of define them for that first act. But once you go after that, they are totally different characters.
Yeah.
From Panic to guys. Heston's the leader guy, but he's a scrapper. That's really what he is. He's really good as a scrapper. He knows that. He's good alone. He's not a team player. He doesn't care. One guy's a science guy. Bro, do what you got to do. Find, we have time. Look at that. I guess we have mint here also. You find herbs, and the other guy's like, I'm crying for my valor, my Americanism. Which is just a little flag this big.
Yeah, when he buries Stewart,
in a pile of rocks. Yeah, so very anticlimactic, and he laughs at them. And Heston laughs at them constantly.
He's like,
you're an idiot.
It's creepy. It
is creepy.
It's borderline very creepy.
It is.
Very
maniacal. Yeah. Very, I am laughing at you. I am so above you. Without you, without me, you're going to die.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he doesn't care because now they lost their baby maker. Which again says a lot. She died of old age. She died as a spinster.
And she sunk with the ship. So kind of, he's like, you're making a memorial, like a little grave for her. Like,
and I think his cigar smoke probably messed up her machine because he had the smoke really close to her tube, and that's what jammed it up. See, secondhand smoke kills. Secondhand smoke ages and kills.
And I think the funny thing about that is in the beginning, right? Heston's character was so down on humanity that he ends up becoming the sole defender of humanity. He's the only person that is left that can articulate what it is, what humanity is, where there are humans on this planet, but none of them can articulate that. So the guy that turned his back on society and said, I'm a seeker, but I'm looking for something different, ended up finding something different. He ended up finding that he is the essentially the last man on Earth until we get to the other movies. But and then
a masterclass of irony.
That's what it is. Well, at the end too, he still runs away.
Yeah.
Whereas the apes like, no, they're my people. This is me, our culture. I have to.
Our culture.
I have to work through it. he still ran away.
Yeah.
So he's still running from what his legacy is of humanity, of a failed society. So actually, that was very interesting for me too. I was like, he's still running. He was running from the beginning. He went into a space trip that he knew everybody would be dead when he returned. He had no family. He had nobody. He didn't care. And now he's still running. He's left everybody. He's left the 3 people who saved his life. So it's actually really, he's an interesting character in that way. I mean, again, great. I think he's great storytelling. I don't, movies at that time, how they're shot is something different. But by the end, I was like, okay, I really get this.
Yeah,
so many layers.
Still the loner and still searching, still seeking, right? Still, like I said, like I said, it keeps going back to he's a
different
seeker.
way. He's looking for something better. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think that they would have let him stay, Nick, if he wanted to stay? He had to leave. I mean, the stuff was because he's too much of a loudmouth. He'd be trying to expose Zay. Like, it was better.
He's the kind of guy that, again, he thinks he's the best and he's smarter than everybody. And, he's the kind of person that is the one that should be in charge. And, so no, it would not have worked out. So I think that's the way it had to be. But, he was starting to evolve. Like you were saying, he's starting to he was defending humanity. At the beginning, he was just kind of like all the flaws of humanity. And this is why we're going out there to try something better, because we can't make it work on Earth, And then it's like, I think, Eric, you mentioned irony. Like, that ending is just so perfect because it goes back to what he was saying at the beginning. He's like, everything that he thought about it came true. Like, he's like, wow, humanity really did blow it, just when I thought humanity was better than this, look at this. We blew it up,
But I think I think he said it. I think he used to say it or have that attitude with some bravado because it's easy to be machismo about it. But then when he actually saw the statue, like the reaction, he's like, I can't actually even I can't believe that you actually did it. Like, I would say it because I'm just cynical and I'm that kind of guy, blustery. Right. But he's like, you actually did it. Like, the whole thing.
And the thing of it was that nothing really was happening at the time to convince him otherwise. So in a way, he's right, for feeling the way he feels. But but you could try to exist within, the confines of humanity and try to be a better person yourself, or try to make change. So there's a little bit of that too. You could just step back and say, oof, aloof and be just sort of like, oh yeah, humanity sucks. But to see that happen and to see, there's a lot to that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, so
there's so much, but again, so many children and kids were keyed into this movie. And they started pointing the other films towards kind of more of a family thing, but this is deep stuff. Again, they're talking literally about race relations, allegories on race relations, and things that were going on in the 60s, in the late 60s. Was like, well, Star Trek did it too, right? They did it with
absolutely.
Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. Well, one person was literally half white and half black, and the other guy was half black and half white, and they had a problem because the other, the halves were opposite. And Kirk's like, what's the difference between each?
And that's the brilliant thing about
sci-fi can get away with that.
Sci-fi can get away with it, but I guess that was the attitude from Hollywood or people who just saw sci-fi as very silly, even despite the allegories and deemed it like, that's why it's rated G. It's like, this isn't, we're not offending anybody here, or it's just, whatever.
Weird,
because you can get away with it because it looks silly because there's a bunch of monkeys walking around and
well, even
but it occurred to me
point,
that it's like,
you got the scene what they introduced to Nova. Think about them when they're in a cage.
Yeah.
They watch them mate. It's not on screen, but it's heavily implied. Guess what? We got you a mate, and now we're going to watch you mate.
Yeah.
That is totally indicative of a commentary on chattel slavery, all that stuff. Dehumanizing people, bringing them to the lowest level. Man and women no longer speaking because they can't. Even Nova tells them to stop talking. It's not that their brain can't do it. They know they get in trouble if they do.
Yeah, and
Yeah, when she
literally
lifts it
motions
off
him
the
to
ground,
stop.
she's like,
Yeah.
she had to be literate enough to understand. Okay, you're writing something.
Hide the writing.
She starts scratching. She's like, they're gonna cut your brain out.
How much of it is instinct? How much of it is true?
Right, right. It's so
intelligence.
Awareness.
Yeah,
because it ties back to the scene at the very end when Taylor ties up Zaius.
Mm-hmm.
And Zira's like, stop, don't do it. And he's like, why? He humiliated me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she's like, and she says something she goes, we didn't know.
Yeah.
Right? She goes, we didn't know that you were a special person, because then we would treat you differently. So it goes right to the heart of
absolutely
how people treat each other. She goes, well, we didn't know that you were a special human. We would treat you differently. We didn't know. It's like, so he's like, no,
us Gen Xers, man, it occurred to me as kids, this is the stuff that we grew up with. I mean, like I said, my first film in the theater was this part of the third part of this franchise. I didn't grow up with Disney right away. We didn't have those cushiony, the 80s came around and all of these fluffy movies came out. We had this stuff.
Yeah,
this is what,
Planet of the
you know what I mean? So we could, we go on and people don't like when we say these kinds of things like, oh, in my day, whatever, but it was true, and that was our reality and the way, this stuff was presented.
Yeah. This would easily be a PG-13 movie today.
Very taken with science fiction. That's the reason why it's probably my favorite genre of filmmaking, So
the eye appeal is amazing. They can get away with it, and the eye appeal of the characters, they can become something that you don't recognize. That's brand new.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the same actor all the time. Even in Omega Man with Charlton Heston, to me, I know he delivers the same, but he's a different guy because it is sci-fi. Yeah, we know he delivers always the same. But
he's very Heston.
Oh my God! We got that. He's got a strong chin. God bless you.
Well, you're the only girl in town, so I guess you'll have to do. Talking to him, saying,
oh my God, that is the best.
With our
Thank you for doing that quote.
Like he's still kind of just.
Yeah,
when he grabs the rifle, it's just like you could just see him later in life when he's like, "You're gonna have to take it out of my cold hands."
But actually, the only other time he was humble, though, was the very beginning when he says, "Seen from out here." I love that line.
Nice. That was nice.
Where he's just like, it squashes a man's ego. I love that line. And it's like, I feel lonely, and you could see it in his face. He's legit, he believes it, and so there's a nice contrast between that and at the end when he sees that he's back
when
home.
When he starts putting that injection in there, he's smoking a cigar. I'm like, is he shooting up? What's he like? When I was a kid,
that's what it looked like.
Space heroin.
The name of that ship was called H.
Yeah, that's exactly what it looked like. I have to say, that syringe was pretty suspect too.
I would like to ask you guys. So his delivery is very theatrical.
Yes.
It's very theater based, all monologues.
Yes.
You could have probably put that on stage. I don't know why they don't have Planet of the Apes, the musical, right now.
They did. Wasn't it Dr. Simpson's episode?
But do you think any other actor who didn't do that, you think it would be as effective?
Shatner would have pulled it off.
Shatner
for sure. An actor who wasn't theatrical. Somebody who was like, it's a realistic, acting, who was just starting.
Well, they kind of tried to do it with James Franciscus.
Could have De Niro 2 years later do this.
They casted another guy that looks just like him, blonde, blue-eyed, and he was totally different.
Mini Heston,
and he didn't have the gravitas that Heston did. He didn't deliver those lines. He was the sex symbol. Like he was more, it wasn't as effective.
It wasn't as effective. That's what
but Roland, I think it would have, it could have worked, because Heston is like the chest thumping. Macho guy, but if you had somebody that was more cerebral, it might have gone in more of a even more philosophical direction because Heston represented like strength and he was he's super tall and he's built so he represented that kind of strength of like pushing against. But if it was more of a meeker actor, it might have been more philosophical. There might have been more conversation and less. Not that this is an overly action-filled movie, because it's not. There's not
like
a
Dustin
lot.
Hoffman could have nailed
it.
it.
And I think I think there's something to be said in the way actors were then.
Yeah.
Because they had to do double the work. I mean, if you think about it, like Star Trek, I mean, they had to act that shit out. Yeah. But anytime the ship is rocking, if there's an action scene, they had to literally act that out. They weren't like stuntmen, and it looked kind of cheesy. But even in this film, like when the chase scene when Heston escapes and they grab him in the net, he's like, these are gorillas.
When they're dragging him too,
like and they're supposed to be like twice the strength of men, and he's kicking them and like he's just plowing right through them. Like it was just odd, but it shows that these actors really had to go there. Nowadays, it's like special effects are giving you something.
Well, they're not
different.
even they're not even actors now. They're
right.
Right. I think this is a good place to stop.
Okay.
And we're going to break out our 3 truths and a lie segment.
All right.
I think we've talked about a lot of heavy stuff, and I think now it's time to have a little bit of fun.
Sure.
So what I'm going to do, Roland, I'm going to read these directions especially for you. I'm going to read off 4, I'm going to read off 4 statements. 3 of them are true. 1 of them is a lie, and you will have to determine and let me know which one you feel is the lie. So 3 of them are true, 1 is a lie, but we'll leave you. We'll kind of go through. I'm going to read everything, and then we'll kind of go in order. And if you need me to read them again, I will. And I think we'll start with Nick. But here we go. I'm going to read the 4 statements. Nobody say anything. Let me get them out. We'll go to Nick. We'll see what he says, and we'll go from there. Statement number 1. 3 of these are true. 1 is a lie. Statement number 1, there are no female gorillas or orangutans in the film. Statement number 2, Charlton Heston and Roddy McDowall are the only 2 actors to appear in the original Planet of the Apes and the 2001 remake from Tim Burton. Number 3, Ingrid Bergman was offered the role of Zira and regretted turning it down after seeing how the film came out. Final statement. Some of the discordant musical sounds from the soundtrack were actually created by using stainless steel mixing bowls and hitting them. Okay, so I'm going to read those statements again. Nobody say anything. Save your answers. Number 1, there are no female gorillas or orangutans in the film. Number 2, Charlton Heston and Roddy McDowall are the only 2 actors to appear in the original film and in the 2001 remake with cameos. Number 3, Ingrid Bergman was offered the role of Zira and regretted turning it down after seeing how the film actually came out. Number 4, some of the discordant and strange musical tones and sounds from the soundtrack were created by using stainless steel mixing bowls. Nick, which one of those is a lie?
They all sound so far-fetched. I know Charlton Heston was in the Tim Burton movie. He had that great cameo where he flips his great line about "Get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty humans," he says, because he's the ape. But was Roddy McDowall in that one? And Ingrid Bergman, I never heard that one. I'm going to go with the lie being Roddy McDowall and Charlton Heston in the Tim Burton movie.
Okay, so you're going to say Charlton Heston and Roddy McDowall, the only
that's
2
the
actors
lie
in this film, and the remake. You're saying that's not true
because I don't know about Roddy McDowall. I don't think he was in it. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, that's fine. Eric, need him again?
No. Okay. I'm going to agree with Nick on that because I don't think he was in that one.
Charlton Heston and Roddy McDowall, the only 2 actors to appear in this film and the 2001 remake. You're saying that's a lie. Okay,
that's a lie.
We got 2 in unison. Roland, first time.
You got 3.
You got 3.
Ooh. That's a friggin' lie. You're lying and you're a liar.
Wow.
There you go. Adamant.
Wow.
I could be wrong.
We're never going to do this segment again because I'm psychologically damaged by just.
Oh man,
Roland single-handedly tore this bit down. No, you lie. You're a liar, and I don't believe you. All right. Well, then, everybody at home, make sure you have your answer locked in. Hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Let us know how you did. You can even message us from within the your podcasting app, your audio app. Like if you're on Spotify, there's a little message us button. You hit that and let us know how you did. So here we go. Okay. So you're saying that was fake. Okay, so here's one of the true statements. Truth: there are no female gorillas or orangutans in the film. The only females are chimpanzees. There are no female gorillas or orangutans in the film. Oddly enough, that's true. Number 2, Second Truth. Yeah, a lot of the weird stuff in the soundtrack, they actually did use stainless steel mixing bowls to get some of those there's a lot of tribal rhythms. There's a lot of off-key, off syncopation stuff. It's very disoriented. Then they have like the horns, like there's so much stuff, but they did use stainless steel mixing bowls. We have 2 statements left. Charlton Heston and Roddy McDowall, the only 2 actors to appear in this film and the 2001 remake, and Ingrid Bergman was offered the role of Zira. Regretted turning it down after seeing how the film came out. Do you guys want the final truth statement, or would you like the lie? Roland, you want me to lie to you?
Lie to me. Always lie to me. You know, I like it.
He's been pent up all the months.
Yeah, okay.
All the months since the last episode. Roland has been. I see it. It's
bottling it up.
Release it. Yeah, it's releasing.
This is just a Wednesday, bro. It's just Wednesday.
Okay, so the lie is, the falsehood is, actually, Charlton Heston and Roddy McDowall are the only 2 actors here in the film in 2001. Wait, there's some truth behind that, though. Charlton Heston and Linda Harrison, Nova, are in this. They're in the remake cameo. Yeah.
What did Nova play in the remake? I'm trying to remember.
He played an ape also, I believe.
Okay.
But didn't Roddy McDowall, didn't he die?
Yeah, he was dead by then.
Yeah, he was dead by then. He wasn't.
That's the thing. Yeah.
The sad thing is, I almost believed the Ingrid Bergman thing was true. I was like, that can't be true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
So I was like, she was offered, and she said, "You know what? I should have done it because it would have been an opportunity to act without people focusing on my beauty, my looks, and this, that, the other thing."
I think the royalty thing too, because she was in a royal family, and I could do something without being.
She would have been good. She would have been interesting.
Yeah,
like that.
I think so.
But Heston saw Kim Hunter during lunch one day. She came without makeup, and she was like, "Hey, how you doing?" And he's like, "Who the hell are you?" Because he didn't recognize her without the makeup.
Yeah. He said it just like that too. I bet.
He probably said,
"Who the hell are you?
Who the hell are you? Hey, Dame, get out of here! Look at this skirt."
Oh yeah, all 3 of you guys are correct. You guys were able to sniff out. You guys were able to sniff out the lie. Congratulations for those at home.
Those are good. Those are really good.
Those were good.
Yeah, sometimes the truth is stranger than me trying to make up lies. So sometimes we'll do 3 lies and a truth, but sometimes we do 3 truths and a lie, depending. But yeah, sometimes the real stuff is more interesting. So let's wrap this up. Let's kind of get a scene or 2 of a favorite scene. Outside of the ending, because we all know that and we're all shocked by it. But I think there's a lot more that goes on that's magical before we even get to that ending. I think the build up and the performances that are given. Like I said, everybody was invested. Everybody took this seriously. That's the thing too. Is you start making films like this, or you try to cash in, you've got a lower budget, you care less about it. Even the subsequent Apes films, they just started wearing like Don Post mask type thing, masks. They started to cheap out. But this one, everybody was in it. Heston was interested in this. He thought the book wasn't that great, but he thought the material could be something interesting. So, Nick, why don't you give us what's one of your favorite scenes?
So many good ones. I think when they go into that cave and they find the human doll, and especially Roddy McDowall's performance. I mean, he wasn't in the second movie. Somebody else played his character, and he did an okay job, but not as good as him. And the fact that Roddy McDowall played 3 different characters in this whole franchise: Cornelius, Caesar, and then Galen in the TV series. A similar kind of character to Cornelius. He deserves so much credit for, just like you say, performing through that, prosthetics and all that stuff. So, but that scene in the cave, as a kid, you're like, what's the revelation? What's going on here? And it was really dramatic and really well done.
Yeah, cool. Roland?
So talking about kid stuff, as a kid, I would say the opening scene when we first see the apes. That to me is probably and it still impacts me when I watch it. The makeup and everything, the energy of it. As a kid, I remember that grabbing me so much. I even forgot the spaceship part scenes of it. I was like, holy shit, the whole section in front of that? That's what it started with the chase. Yeah, I was like, it's kind of, because that always stuck in my head. But as now, that meeting in the office, with that dialogue is so layered and so rich. I thought that you can save your life if you tell me an answer. Where's your tribe? Because I'm gonna kill them all, but you're gonna live. And having that dialogue, that sort of back and forth with them of trying to figure out. Well, Taylor's trying to figure out what he knows, and the other side won't give up what he knows. You know, I thought it was really interesting, and to me that was one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah,
it was
and
nice
it
and
turns out
long. It was a well acted scene, probably long takes, just really well acted. Two professionals doing their job really well.
Yeah, and knowing what we find out about Zayas, he probably wouldn't have let Taylor live anyway. Probably would have killed him.
Right. Oh,
right?
absolutely.
You see that he just says stuff, and he just like whatever
to save his people.
Yeah,
that's his
and
rationale.
Then he's got the ability to say arrest these people and charge them with heresy.
Yeah, so it's very impactful. For me, that's a great scene. It's a really
Zayas is a bastard.
He's a little badass. You look nice though in the orange. Let's be honest. You look pretty good.
It all matched. The hair and the whole getup.
Everything. That guy, he's got a good fit going on.
Down to the shoes. It's all about the shoes. Eric, what do you have for a favorite scene?
I'm gonna go with that one as well, but I think even the one at the end where he's tied up again, that just that back and forth, the monologuing and just giving it to Taylor, like you were afraid of me from the start. Why? And he's like, because you're a man. And he just lays it all out, and Taylor doesn't know what to say to that. Really, he doesn't respond. You know, and I love that. And it just Zayas gets the final say, and he's like, it's got to be a why, and he's like, don't look for it, and it's so chilling. You may not like what he knows. Yeah, he knows everything. And that right there to me, leading up to that moment where he sees the Statue of Liberty is just.
Do you think he knows? Do you think that Zayas knows that? Or does he just suspect it and he doesn't want to believe the truth? Like that's a good point.
I think he knows. I think he knows. He knows. It's obviously it's not a conspiracy, but it's a cover up. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the implications of that information getting out would be, but it's not like the primitives now could take that information and have an uprising because they can't understand what it meant. They can't understand that they used to be the dominant species on the planet, but for some reason keeping that hidden, again, it's just more the bureaucracy, right? They're deciding what the rest of the population what information is good for them to have.
Right? What scrolls are allowed.
And and it plays and it comes up several times in the film. You're afraid of me. What are you afraid of? Because Zayas knows that Taylor's a threat, that he could be potential.
Again, a lot of
just one man it could undo.
Especially a handsome man like that in a loincloth.
Yeah.
I'm not wearing this. It smells.
Let me take this off.
If you could have this intelligent person that leads these human beings,
he could lead them to revolt.
It'd be dangerous.
He said it too. We could in 6 months. We'd be ruling
this planet.
Yeah.
My favorite scene is not nearly as highbrow. It's actually it's not even a scene. It's just a funny part of the film. When Heston makes his escape and he's running through the ape city.
Yeah, that's great.
And he comes upon a funeral.
Yeah.
Ape funeral, and the guy's giving the eulogy, and he never met an ape that he didn't like.
Yeah.
And then the little kid comes, like the little ape, the little gorilla kid, he's like looking around and he comes out, he goes, look at it. And Heston,
it's a man.
He picks him up and moves him to the side, and then he so totally disrupts the funeral, jumping over the casket, and all the apes are like, "What the hell's going on here?" Like, they don't know they never saw anything like this before.
Well, can you imagine if it's an animal like at a funeral? Like that's the reaction, right? It's like this zebra is walking through our, or something like that. And
I just get rid of that creature. Yeah,
yeah. I just wish. I would love to get that casket, that wooden casket.
Oh, yeah, I was just about to say how perfectly carved it was and polished, and
they should make like a little thing. They should make like a little thing, like a little ape casket. That would be like with the gorilla kid.
There you go.
Funeral set. Funko.
I'd get that.
Make it.
Yeah.
We would have bought it.
I would have bought it. It's Gia-Pet, man.
Buy it right now. Forget it. So mine isn't as highbrow, but it's just a fun part of the film because again, it's showing you the parallels of in society where now they're eulogizing the ape. He was a great man, and it's all doing all that stuff. And the kid is just like, he's like, well, something walked by me. He like catches as he kind of walks behind me, like, what was that? Yeah, the little gorilla guy. So it was cool.
Well, it's like I pointed out before, like we because they couldn't do all of those modern things like show you a city or but yet so a lot of the dialogue in the film reflects how modern they are. Like when Cornelius is saying, I'm up for a raise, like that's not a primitive, society. That's like, we both have stimulating futures and things like that. And the fact that he uses the term fiance, and they're getting married and that whole bit too. So it lends that to that modern thing that they wanted to do, but I guess in the dialogue, it's enough, So
it's there. I think it's there.
Yeah.
As we close out, final question, we'll go around. Recommended for kids today? Is this a movie? There's nothing horrible in it, but it's not what we, kids fare for us. Obviously, this was something different. But Roland, is this something for?
I mean, honestly, I think a lot of this stuff, it just hits you different at different ages. I think it is one of those films that you can watch it and you'll take something out of it, and your kid will go, great mass. And then you might have to explain some stuff, but you know what? What's better than having a good conversation with your kid after a movie? And explaining what things meant, and not everything, obviously.
Something it would be interesting to see a reaction. To this one. I don't know if kids
impacted with this.
I don't think they would. Some kids might be appalled by it. Just the whole racial thing and the whole the sort of lack of the PC thing. It's I think. But I don't know. I think it's important. I think this is a great sort of lesson to show. This is this is the way it was in the '60s, and this is whatever, and we're still learning.
Nick, what do you think?
So yeah,
I don't know. Sometimes I show movies to my kids that are like from the late 1980s, and they're like, "Why? This is an old movie. What are you watching this old movie for?" I was like, "They don't. I don't think they'll get like the contextual references that we got. Yeah. Like this was made in the 60s, and the counterculture and all that stuff. And they've seen the new movies with the great special effects and great storytelling. And I love the new movies.
Yeah, I like the new one.
So I wonder if they would just be so distracted like we were with the beginning. Oh, it's so funny, and just not really get into it like we did when we were kids." Then there's those iconic scenes. I mean, just seeing the gorilla on the horse with the rifle. I mean, that is such an iconic Planet of the Apes image that was like on all the T-shirts and all the lunch boxes and all the posters.
Comics,
so
everything.
Comics.
Special. I think it's a special part of our childhood. Like I said, we were exposed to stuff that was a little more adult themed that maybe we didn't get then, but we were able to watch it and almost like Roland said, and kind of get the things out of it that we got. Cornelius was cool, and Zira, and when you had the TV show, you had Urko and Ursus, or all the different other characters. So they did start to, again, like I said, once it got into a TV series too, it was definitely tailored towards family fare, problem of the week. Whatever they had.
I like to think of the TV series as like Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to say that.
Starsky and Hutch in space, maybe.
There you go.
Yeah.
They just didn't have a charger to jump over the hood. They had to do it in the wagon.
They could have just slid over a wagon. Just slid over a wagon. That's it.
I think that's going to do it for this episode of the 3324 podcast. If you made it this far, thanks a bunch. Go ahead and give us a rating on your podcast provider. That helps us, helps get the word out there, helps spread the word. We appreciate that. And big thanks to Roland Uruci. It's been too long.
Yeah, welcome back.
We're not going to let the stuff build up as long next time. We'll have more of a quicker release. Roland?
That's why.
Oh my god!
Wow.
Oh,
raise the stakes. I'll see you a heart attack and raise you a coronary. Wow. Okay. Now I feel like I have to have him on next week. He could be dead. I could be dead.
Wow. Old man complains. You don't love me.
So much tomorrow. Roland, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. Always a lot of fun, and I love doing the the quirky movies, because we do kind of tear them apart a little esoterically as well, which is always a lot of fun. Professor Nick Zayas. That's what it, if you're watching on YouTube, you won't see that, but that is the name he put in. Professor Nick Zayas. Not a doctor, but a professor
and
now.
Just a professor. Didn't get my doctorate, so.
He was a crackpot anyway. How did he become a doctor? Where's the ape college that he went to?
He's a fraud.
Doctor. Doctor of apology. But yeah, so Nick, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, Eric will be waiting on his comfy couch until the next time we see you, and I will be on my green hard IKEA chair. Right? I think that's it.
Yep.
I think we've done it all. Did all the call to action. We thanked everybody. So for Roland, for Nick, and for Eric, this has been Dean asking you to please be kind. Go ahead and rewind.
You've been listening to the 3324 podcast with Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider, so please like, subscribe, and rate to become a part of the 3324 family. Your feedback is important, so make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 podcast and on Twitter at 3324p to join the conversation.